In 1982, I was living in a shared flat in Hackney with 3 other people. And I was doing a PhD in Henry James. I wasn't getting on terribly well with it. And I was one of the people in the flat. We were all socialists. That's something that I had discovered, socialist ideas, when I'd gone to university, because I came from a very, very conservative sort of background. And one of my flatmates, Chris, he was gay, very out gay man, very much on the scene, and had a kind of very confident, it seemed to me, confident kind of gay identity. And I was questioning my own sexuality. I had had one relationship with a woman when I was an undergraduate. And he saw this advert for the Gay Video Project, or Gay Youth Video Project in Capital Gay. And he showed it to me. And I went along with him for something to do, I think, and because I was interested. And I think I took my friend who was staying with me at the time, Stella, I think she came along the same, suddenly come to me. Anyway, she was straight, but I went along to sort of just see what was going on, and immediately started to feel that there was a group forming. And I think at that time in my life, I really needed a group, because I did come out, well, yeah, it's difficult to get it in the right. I wanted to be part of this group. It seemed really exciting. People were playing with cameras and sound and pictures, and I was very interested in photography. And I was very interested in writing and literature and films, and I'd seeing a lot of independent films, art films, international films, and I've become very opened up to kind of all different sorts of culture, because I'd grown up in such a conservative mainstream sort of atmosphere, and so it appealed to me to kind of explore these things that people were doing. I was very taken with the idea of gay identity. I'd wanted to not label myself before, but it started to become something that I did want to embrace, was a lesbian identity. At the time, I knew I was bisexual, but I could see that you couldn't be bisexual if you wanted to be in this group. So I kind of adapted to that, and I came out as lesbian. And I had a relationship with somebody in the project, and I came out as a result of that in the process of Framed Youth in my family. And I got rejected quite severely. It was very, very traumatic. And I really had nowhere to go but this group to get support and people who understood. And so it became very much part of my survival strategy, being in the group and taking part and playing a part in it. I was never in the lead of experimenting with ways of doing things. I remember once filming somebody, interviewing somebody, and I was on the camera, and I started filming their hands, their feet, and the way, and their body and their face as they were talking, and realizing that it was good to a certain extent, but you couldn't keep doing that. It started to become fetishized. It started to become voyeuristic. But it was interesting up to a point, and I started to realize that I wasn't really sure how to handle that environment. So I was very interested in reflecting the oppression that people were facing. So talking about people coming out, problems with family, the process of becoming pleased to be lesbian or gay rather than apologetic about it. That was something that's very important. And because I'd already discovered socialism, I was incredibly excited to find that this whole idea of sexuality and politics could come together in one kind of concept or one kind of way of thinking. So I now know, looking back, having, I'm a writer and I've written about LGBT politics and history, that the group that made Framed Youth was very much a product really of the 1970s gay movement, which had a very, very radical, revolutionary heart to it. It had protest at its heart, and it had a social transformation as a goal, not just getting rights from an existing society, but wanting to challenge the whole of that society. That's one of the things I find most exciting about looking back at Framed Youth and seeing that we need those sorts of politics now. We need to look back into what was produced in the 70s and 80s and draw on it so that we can reclaim that sort of radical revolutionary approach to sexual liberation. So for me it was a sort of sexual liberation, creative discovery, political discovery, and lots of personal changes for me at that time as well. So it was a very, very powerful experience. I do think that there were people in the group who were more confident about visual experimentation, and I'd like to, sort of honour them really for what they achieved in terms of the experimentation and the daring that took place. People who were prepared to kind of take risks and experiment. It's funny looking back on it. I know that when I joined the project, there was a purposeful emphasis on bringing more women in and making it a genuinely inclusive project of women and men. Don't forget, as well as not being bisexual inclusive, it wasn't really transsexual inclusive either. So it was very much lesbians and gays. And so I became, now I'll tell you what, to be quite honest, again, you see, I didn't take the lead in that. That was something that just I watched happen. So I became part of a group that was really angry with all the men in the group and wanted to make a stand about having aspects of the film that were generated by women and that women did autonomously. They didn't want to always be doing things led by men, or the gay scene itself was quite male dominated, and the women's clubs were very much they weren't such commercial settings. So women were seen as a kind of oppressed minority within the lesbian and gay community and within that group as well, and that they needed to have a space in order to articulate and firm up, what they wanted to say in the group. They needed to have their own space to decide how the women's issues were going to be presented. And again, I don't think I really fully understood what that meant, but there were women in the group, Claire and Jill and Kim, Rose, Trill, Pom, and I think they had a clear idea that if you were going to make a strong women's presence in the film, women needed to work independently to create their own voice, and I think it's done brilliantly. I think they succeeded really well in presenting a really in-depth and rich kind of impression of what the lesbian and gay community was up against. There were lots of arguments, there were lots of disagreements, there were resentments in the group, there were ongoing tensions, there were debates that went on and on and on, which I found a great strain, and I often didn't really understand. But looking back on that's quite extraordinary that a group of young people could stick together through that and come through all those debates and find common ground and to make something creative together in a group. And it is a genuine group effort. There wasn't one person in charge, and if there was a desire at the beginning that, or a plan that Philip Timmins and Andy Lippman would produce and direct something about young lesbians and gays, that was absolutely turned on its head. And Philip became the sort of facilitator for what the group wanted to do. And I think that, that's a really important moment in filmmaking, that it is possible to make something collectively, but it takes blood, sweat and tears to do that. But the rewards are, huge. I can remember near the beginning, we were talking about what we were going to be making, because Philip said, I remember him saying this, they've given us this money, it's for development. We can just give them back a pile of crap. There won't be any, there won't be any comeback. We could give them a pile of crap, and they would say, "Okay, we've spent the money, and you've given us a pile of crap, and that's fine." But I think that there was a decision made that we wanted to make something. We wanted to finish something. We wanted to unify what we were doing and have something to show for it. And I think that was an extraordinary sort of commitment. And it meant that people they worked really hard over that year. People worked full time on it for nothing. And wanted to produce something that was finished and that they felt proud of and that they felt spoke the truth, and that they felt was genuinely, and they wanted to be creative. They wanted to create something, and they wanted it to be really provocative and, let's put this, that word, we would say now edgy or interventionist, something that would be a surprise, that would be unexpected, that would be unconventional, and be surprising and wake people up. When the film won the Grierson Award, we were all, what? It's done what? What's that mean? And we didn't know it had been put in for it, and it was very surprising and a bit alarming that it had won this award and become like a mainstream event in a way. I can remember we all went along to the screening at the NFT, as it was then, like school kids in a big, we were quite unruly. We were very colourful, unruly bunch of people. But there were some people that didn't like the fact that it was that it won the Grierson Award. Ernest Anstey, who was one of the judges, said it was one of the worst. It's something like it was one of the worst exhibitions of the worst type of navel gazing. Just a homophobic statement dressed up as some kind of clever criticism, but not everybody wanted Framed Youth to win the Grierson Award. I think that Framed Youth is a wonderful resource for LGBT history. I think it does expose a little bit about what it was like being lesbian and gay at that time in London, and what we were concerned about, how we felt, how we behaved, and I think that it's got something to say. I think, I'm proud that it's very political, that it was made in the time of Thatcher. It confronts the state. It talks about the interest that the state has in dividing and ruling the population. It relates that to the privatisation, and it relates to brutal policing. And of course we had the miners' strike to come. Thatcher was actually, preparing for the miners' strike at that time. And I think that comes across in the film as well, that there's a confrontation brewing. And, I hope that people watch it and find it an insight and also an inspiration about how we do need to keep the fight for sexual liberation as a political protest. Basically, once Channel 4 decided that they wanted to screen it, they not only had to buy it from us, but the whole question of all the copyrighted material that we had used in it with absolute abandon. We had no holds barred. We filmed off the telly, we used pop songs, we used whatever we like, and it all had to be gone through moment by moment, second by second, identifying where clips had come from, because we didn't even remember where clips had come from. So Channel 4 put us in touch with a film researcher who's now a very successful documentary filmmaker, Claire Bevan, and she had to go through split second by split second every little bit of Framed Youth, making sure that every little bit of music, and there was also the music that was playing in the bars where we were interviewing people, that had to be cleared as well. It was a really tremendous process of unbelievable detail. So it was screened at the BFI, and I didn't go, but I got my dad and my stepmother to go. I don't know why I did. I thought that they should see what I'd been doing. And so they went and they saw it at the BFI, and when I spoke to them afterwards, my dad's terribly homophobic. They're very homophobic. My dad said, well, the subject matter was obnoxious, but it was a very well-made film. And my stepmother said, it could sell ice to the Eskimos. It was screened after hours as a kind of X-rated material in a way, not actually, but seen as something that wasn't family viewing. And it reflects the kind of contradictory nature of a group of people that are seen to be not at the time homosexuality was equated with paedophilia. We were seen as perverts, we were seen as corrupting and undesirable and so on. But it kind of creates an underground, it creates a counterculture, it creates something that, although it's hidden, grows in confidence and so on. Very different from now, where Framed Youth would be very much something that would be shown in mainstream viewing time. And it just really makes me realise that, the effects, we really have to confront the effects of austerity on young LGBT people who are coming out and maybe in hostile family environments or feeling lacking in confidence. And if they haven't got access through public libraries and through public services and facilities to get support, to create networks, to find information and so on, this is a real attack, a material attack on a minority group in society. And And I think that it's, you know, we really need to, if we're going to take the spirit of framed youth into the future, then we need to fight austerity and make sure that you know, the rights of LGBT people are maintained and defended in terms of access to information and access to support in society. You know, both Framed Youth and the LGSM video were made on the hoof with no proper funding or budgets, or you know, they were really low budget, people working for the love of it, with an intention, a political intention, a political and social intention